Hello, hello. This is Rod. Live within your means. And yes, I look like an Amish gnome with a winter cap on who's been out shoveling snow, because I have been. But I've got an important thing to share with you here to make a difference, and would like to call on every one of you, mothers, fathers, grandfathers, grandchildren, brothers, sisters, and ask you to forward this to your friends to get them to help our country today, this week. And I'm going to tell you how as soon as I read this poem to you. 4 trumpet players were very concerned about their country as they had each learned that their leaders in Washington had become wealthy, but their country's future didn't look healthy. When outsiders went there that didn't fit in, the insiders picked on the ones coming in. Some leaders took money from countries who hated America's freedoms, as some even stated. The trust in D.C. wasn't there anymore. More leaders grew rich, but more people grew poor. America's leaders had all been oath takers, but now most of them had all become oath breakers. The brothers dropped so much of what they were doing, they spent many months researching and stewing. They read a lot, wrote a lot, prayed a lot too. Then they envisioned just what they could do. They wrote very long papers asking the courts to rule whether leaders had ignored reports. 'Twas an easy decision, their oath had been broken, but justices needed the people awoken. As judges prayed daily, a still and small voice said God had been giving the people a choice to awaken from slumber and call on the judges. Awaken the people, especially the drudges. You can look that up if you don't know what that means. It's the people, just people that do menial labor. Just the people without positions, without great honor. The children must help to awaken their parents to email, actually to write letters. I'll change that right now. To write to. Here we go. Justices Sonia, Sam, and Clarence. Elena, Neil, Brett, Amy, Katanji, and John, even though some have not really been there too long. So a nation's in crisis, we call on the kids. Please spend a few minutes, yes, put on the skids. Stand up for your future, for truth, and for freedom. Write to the judges and tell them we need them to do what is right for this country and people. The people are waking and no longer sheeple. The judges are heroes when they do what's right. The people are heroes who get in the fight. That still and small voice is calling to you to help us save freedom of red, white, and blue. I'm going to show you something else here. This is on a website called RaylandBrunson.com. This is a form letter to the Supreme Court justices, all those that I just named in that poem. But here's the address: Supreme Court of the United States, 1 First Street, Northeast, Washington, D.C., zip code 20543. And write a letter to the attention of each of the justices. That's John Roberts, Clarence Thomas, Sonia Sotomayor, Samuel Alito, Elena Kagan, Amy Coney Barrett, Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, and Ketanji Brown Jackson. This is in a case Brunson versus, it's not just Alma Adams. There's a whole list of politicians that are actually being sued for breaching their oath of office to not defend the Constitution. says this letter is to express my support of the above referenced case. The United States has experienced a national security breach when the defendants of this case voted to thwart the proposed investigation into claims that there were enemies of the Constitution that rigged the 2020 presidential election. This case is not about a fraudulent election. It is about the defendants breaching their oath of office by thwarting the investigation. They voted not to investigate, even though the Director of National Intelligence, Ratcliffe, 2 years ago, on January 6th, I believe it was, told them that they had information from I believe it's all of the 17 intelligence agencies, if that's how many there are, but it's umpteen intelligence agencies, including the FBI and CIA, who had information showing that enemies of our Constitution, including other countries, had interfered in our election. And there were quite a number of members of Congress, the Senate, even the Vice President Pence, and others that voted not to even investigate when they had been told by the director that there was a breach. That there had been the election, and they had ample evidence that the election had been impacted by enemies of the Constitution in other countries, and they voted not to even investigate, even though they've sworn to defend the Constitution to represent you and I. You truly are in a position that represents a court system greater than the world has ever seen. Who? These 9 Supreme Court justices. We're just asking them to look and see whether the elected members of Congress and the Senate, who keep on getting wealthier and wealthier, they go in making less than $200,000 a year, and a couple of years later they're millionaires or multimillionaires, and because they're allowed to do insider trading that you and I would go to prison for. I pray, because they impact the decisions that impact the money of those stocks, and they have that inside information, yet continually members of Congress are passing laws that are impacting us and then saying that they're exempt from it. Like all the people working for the U.S. government had to get a, quote, vaccine, an experimental vaccine that was not approved by the FDA. But they and the people working in their offices didn't have to get it, but everyone else working for the federal government did. And there's just been all kinds of things that have happened. I hope you're aware of some of the problems. Anyway, I pray this petition will be granted, and for this case to be heard, that the right and just outcome might prevail. I'm grateful for your time and consideration. Sign it. If you want to change that some, go ahead and change it. But I encourage you to immediately, today, send a letter to the Supreme Court asking them to look into things and see if the people that we voted for have upheld their oath of office and defended the Constitution, because I can tell you right now that a lot of them are not. A lot of them are being bribed in different ways. They're being blackmailed in different ways. And there are a handful of them that continually stand up for what's right, but they seem to be few in number nowadays. And I think everyone has a pretty good feeling that things aren't right. So this is Rod. Live within your means. Thank you for your efforts. God bless you for the efforts that you make. And if you'll do this and send this out to others, send a link to this video if you will. You're welcome to comment below. Please do. If you want to subscribe to this channel, this meager little channel, you're welcome to. But God bless you for all the efforts that you make. Have a wonderful day.